questions for oral answer.
A point of order, Mr. Speaker.
A point of order, Dr. Kennedy Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I seek leave to move a motion without notice and without debate to acknowledge the unconditional targets for 2020 by the European Union and Switzerland of 20%, Norway of 30%,
Order. Leave us sought for that course of action. Is there any objection? There is objection.
And Denmark of 30%. Thank you.
Question number 1 in the name of the Honourable Kate Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance. What progress is the government making with its share offer program to help New Zealanders diversify their savings away from property and bank deposits?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the government announced that it expects to complete the partial float and share market listing of Meridian Energy by early November, subject to market conditions. This is the second offer in the government's share offer program. Listing up to 49% of Meridian will give New Zealanders the opportunity to invest in another big New Zealand company. Many people recognise the value of diversifying their growing savings away from property and bank deposits. As with Mighty River, the government remains committed to 85 to 90% New Zealand ownership after the Meridian offer, which will include the government's 51% shareholding.
Supplementary question, Honourable Kate Wilkinson.
Thank you. Supplementary to the Minister of Finance. What are the main advantages in proceeding with the share offer program?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, there are several. The companies themselves will benefit from a broader shareholder base and being stronger for the rigour and transparency that a share market listing brings. The company will be able to access capital to grow in more ways than they can as 100% taxpayer-owned companies. From the taxpayer's perspective, the share program will free up between $5 to $7 billion to invest in other government capital. That means the government can get the money off New Zealanders while providing them with an investment opportunity rather than borrowing off foreign bankers, which our opponents prefer to do.
Supplementary question, the Honourable Clayton
To
Cosgrove.
the Minister, what is the estimated cost to taxpayers of the retail instalment scheme for the Meridian float, whereby investors pay for 60% of the cost of the shares at float and pay for 40% 18 months later? And if he has no estimated cost, why not?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, no, we don't have an estimate. And there's a reason. The reason is because we can't know. The final.
There were two parts to that question. I want to hear the second part to that answer.
Mr. Speaker,
well, then the member will ask his colleagues to be more quiet.
we can't know the final share price, and in any case, purchasers of those shares may well take it into account and therefore bid just a bit more for the shares, which would offset the cost.
Supplementary question, the Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Given that the Minister has announced the float and doesn't have an estimate of the costs, could he give us, as he has done in the past, his best guess?
Honourable Bill English.
No, Mr. Speaker, I can't. I think what the member is more concerned about is that the government could end up with several $1 billion cash in its bank account, which we would then be able to use to invest in schools, hospitals, prisons and other capital projects that the New Zealand public support, and we'll be able to do it without borrowing the money off foreign bankers.
Supplementary question, the Honourable Kate Wilkinson.
Supplementary to the Minister of Finance. What are some of the features of the Meridian Energy share offer to encourage everyday New Zealand investors to consider buying shares?
Honourable Bill English.
The government has confirmed it will use instalment receipts, which allow investors to pay for their Meridian shares in 2 instalments. The first instalment, for around 60% of the share price, will be paid when investors apply for shares. The second instalment will not need to be paid for another 18 months. Between the 2 instalments, investors will receive full dividends paid out in that period. Instalment receipts are common overseas and were used by the government in the float of capital properties in 1998. Another feature of the offer is that there will be a share price cap for New Zealand retail investors, giving them more certainty about how many shares they will get when they apply to buy shares.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, the Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Did the Minister provide the Cabinet with any estimate of the cost of the retail instalment scheme, and if so, what was that? And did he further provide Cabinet with any estimate or with any notion of how such costs would be funded?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, no estimate was provided. Well, for the reason that the member mentioned before, it would just be a guess, and that wouldn't be satisfactory.
Order. Order. Supplementary question, the Honourable Kate Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Supplementary to the Minister of Finance. How will the proceeds from the share offer program be invested in new public assets through the Future Investment Fund?
Mr. Speaker.
Order.
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Bill English.
As noted in a Cabinet decisions in June 2012, ministers agreed that all new capital expenditure over the next 3 or 4 years will count against the Future Investment Fund. This means that ministers wanting access to the fund need to follow the normal Cabinet process to draw down from it and establish appropriations. A large proportion of this capital spending will be for schools and hospitals, but not exclusively. For example, we have earmarked $1 billion for modernising schools as part of the government's 21st Century Schools program, including, I think, 14 new schools in Christchurch. And those children will know they're going to a school funded by New Zealand investors, not foreign bankers.
Question number 2, Grant Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister.